Hello and welcome back to episode 4 of the Where We Belong podcast. I'm Olivia Eisenhower, your host, and you may know the name Rex Hudler that does color commentating for Bally Sports Midwest for the Kansas City Royals and played in the MLB, but you really need to know his kick-butt daughter that is the definition of a boss woman and joining me in the midst of her hustle in New York City. Hello.
My name is Alyssa Hudler. I am currently living in New York City working for Excel Sports Management. Undergrad at KU, grad student at ASU. I'm graduating here in May, so it's super exciting. But yeah, that's a little bit of my background.
So you started off more on the journalism kind of broadcast side. What made you want to go into that, and what made you want to come out of that?
Yeah, so I originally went to KU to be in their journalism program. I didn't exactly know if I wanted to be in front of the camera or behind. I knew that I wanted to have something to do with production. Telling stories is something I'm really good at and I love to do. So that was what I was really focused on. But I realized that I didn't want to put myself in a box or limit myself to the opportunities that I could get in sports when I graduated. So I was a little nervous about being a journalist just because I felt like, okay, I could only write stories or tell them on TV. And you know, it was just kind of getting in my head a little bit. And that wasn't something that I was extremely passionate about. Like, it wasn't my life dream to be like a sportscaster or like on TV. It was just kind of more of a, I'm good on camera. I can deliver words that are given to me. My dad was on TV and, you know, did that thing too. So I was like, oh yeah, I can do it. But I realized that that was not my calling. I am definitely a saleswoman. And so I really leaned into that and decided to do strategic communication. So I learned a lot about marketing, a lot about mass media still, but just without the kind of application of like doing, you know, the broadcasting.
Kind of walk me through like your childhood, because you touched on your dad a little bit, but can you kind of tell my listeners what exactly he did? You moved around quite a bit as a kid. What was it like growing up with him as a father, and also how much of an influence is he on your career still?
Of course. Yeah, of course. So my dad is my hero. And I'm not just saying that to say it, but on a very real note, my dad has taught me a lot about life, whether it's baseball or just how to treat people or how to be and be positive and happy and things of that nature. He's had a huge influence on me. I was born at spring training. He was with the Orioles. The Orioles actually let him go the day before I was born. And then the day I was born, the Angels walked into the hospital and asked him to play for them. So I have literally been involved with baseball since I took my first breath. So I saw that, you know, that was always fitting in my story. I moved around. My dad got traded to the Phillies. We lived in Philly for a little bit. And then I was actually supposed to be an Ohio farm girl because my father bought a farm after he retired, and we were going to move to a farm in Ohio, and his agent called him and said, excuse me, sir, let's live the Orange County lifestyle instead and move your family to California. So thank God my dad has a personality on him, and that was, you know, able to afford him the opportunities that he has now. But it was an awesome childhood. I mean, you can't really recreate it. My dad is just a very unique person in general. So having him as my father has been quite entertaining. I can't lie about that. Never a dull moment in our house growing up. But I also think that he had a lot to do, obviously, with my career path, but he exposed me to so much at a young age, whether it was the industry and the business of baseball or just, you know, extracurricular activities. Just, he wanted me to figure out what I really loved. So I played tons of sports. I was in theater and music, and I did literally everything. But I realized that I wanted to carry my name on and my family name through the baseball world. I saw more of an advantage for myself in the business side instead of being on TV, because obviously that both worlds are very, very cutthroat, but there aren't a lot of women in either. And I saw that I had a lot of knowledge of the game of baseball, of like the families that come through the systems and like how that works. So I realized that I eventually wanted to go into athlete representation. I think that following an athlete through their entire life cycle of their career is extremely important. Obviously baseball is very unique, and they have a farm system, and you're playing for tons of years before you even potentially get to see the big stage. So being able to kind of encourage the guys, take care of them, make sure they're motivated, and like always working and moving forward. That was something that was really intriguing to me. So that's kind of what I'm doing now. I'm training to become an agent. I have not taken my certification yet or anything like that, but just trying to get as much experience in the agency realm as possible.
So you touched on your dad, and any of my listeners that don't know her dad, he is a character in the best way possible. He does analysts and some color for the Kansas City Royals and on now Bally Sports. But you have 3 other brothers. Mm-hmm. So I want to know what it's like growing up with basically a male-dominated household. You're going into a male-dominated field, but just what kind of influence has that had on you, just in your career and your personality, that kind of thing?
Totally, that's a good question. So yeah, I was a huge tomboy growing up for obvious reasons. My dad had me in all the sports. Like you said, I grew up in a very male-dominated house. My mom is a professional singer, so that's kind of where I got the arts from. But in terms of kind of operating around little boys, and well, yeah, he's an adult, my dad is, but he really does act like a child sometimes. So, but no, it honestly was a really cool experience. One of my brothers also has Down syndrome, so that taught me a lot about life. How to love people, how to treat people, how to be patient, how to be understanding. So I think that's kind of carried me like throughout my life and career. But yeah, it definitely set me up for major success going into a male-dominated field, because I have lots of practice of talking to and dealing with men of all ages and stages. So
what would be, if you were to have like a little sister, what would be your biggest piece of advice for her?
That's a very good question also. Just don't silence yourself. Like, society teaches young girls, like from a very small age, to just kind of be seen and not heard. I mean, children at all ages, I guess that happens at some point, but yeah, make your opinion heard, because I promise you, it's probably more like well thought out and put together than half of the men you're around. So always make your opinions and everything be heard, and don't dim your light for anyone or anything, and in any situation. Always be yourself.
And you can kind of hear the sirens behind you, which
I'm so sorry about that.
You're totally fine, but it kind of brings me to my next question. You're out in New York City, which is basically your dream job.
Yeah.
What has been the biggest lessons you've learned from like when you're traveling around when you were little to just really securing kind of your dream spot where you are now?
Yeah. Always being sure of myself, like being prepared. Always like, and I know this is probably not the best example, but like, I don't have a car out here. So like whenever I go somewhere, I have to plan far ahead of like how I'm going to get there, how long it's going to take, and all the things. But I think you could also apply that to life. Being well prepared for all situations that you're in is extremely important. Like half of the conversations I've had in my life, I've already had in my head before they even happened. Yeah, just always being prepared. Every interview you go in, any any person you talk to, knowing a little bit about them, just so you can bring up something naturally in conversation. It makes you come across way more caring and interested and intrigued in what these people do, and just being mindful of the people around you.
If you were like to have a moment, do your own TED Talk.
Oh, yeah.
I work a lot of ASU baseball games, and I think in sports broadcast in general, it's getting better.
Mm-hmm.
But if there's ever a girl out there, or just anyone out there wondering if they belong where they're at, what would you say to them?
If it is a dream that you have made up in your head, it's yours. Like, imposter syndrome is real. Like, I felt it when I started this job. I was like, what? Do these people even know like who they're hiring? Like, am I capable of doing this? Like, you know, but like, obviously, yes. Like, my hard work and experience has gotten me to this point, and I deserve it. So just know, like I said, just being sure of yourself, knowing that if this is what you want and this is your dream, you're right where you need to be.
And you grew up in Orange County, and I kind of want to go back to the dad thing, but
Mm-hmm.
I know my dad is the perfect definition of a girl dad, just with Kobe Bryant, and when all that happened, I really love that has become a thing, because I think a lot of dads don't get enough credit for the kick butt women that they raise.
Yes.
I'm beyond thankful for my mom, but I think dads play a big role in that too.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think has been the biggest piece of impact from your dad, being a girl dad to you?
Don't let these men walk all over you. And I know that is not like the most unique piece of advice, but that's the one thing that I can hear over and over and over in my head, is that don't second guess yourself. Like, just speak your mind. And if you've said something wrong, then, you know, take it back and say you'll find a better answer next time, or whatever, you know. Yeah, don't let anyone walk all over you. Doesn't matter the age, doesn't matter the gender, doesn't matter any of it. Just do you. Just do you.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. I know you're jam-packed in the big city. Hopefully I can see you soon.
I know. Thanks, Olivia. I had a good time talking to you today.
I just want to, and I don't want to get too sappy, but thank you for also, like she mentioned, she's graduating from Arizona State very soon, which congrats, but thank you for kind of being that big sister figure to me. It's meant a lot more than I think you realize it has. Well,
I'm happy to be a figure like that to you, because I don't think enough women do that for other women. It's a very, like I mentioned, cutthroat industry, and the women are more cutthroat than the men, because there are only a limited amount of spots and seats, and they want it. So when you come in, they get threatened. So I have always tried to pay it forward. Like, and if you are that sure of yourself and your job and what you're doing, you should never be intimidated by anyone else coming in, no matter the age, gender, whatever. So I'm happy that I can be a positive, you know, woman in sports figure for you, but you're a total badass, and you're going to be so successful one of these days. So I have no doubts in my mind that you're going to kill this.
Thank you so much. And thank you, my lovely listener, for tuning in this week. Make sure to check back in next Monday. I promise you're not going to want to miss Monday's episode. And make sure you're following Where We Belong Pod on Instagram to make sure you don't miss any updates.